Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the new Adaptiv TPX Automotive laser jammer. And this is basically a modified version of their motorcycle-specific laser jammer, but in this case designed to be installed on cars, trucks, and SUVs. Feature-wise, it's a pretty simple laser jammer, but so far in our initial testing, it looks to be pretty effective. Now, with TMG seeming like it's not available at this point, I'm actually thinking that this TPX laser jammer might be the new pick for being the best inexpensive laser jammer if you don't want to jump for something like the ALP, for example. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at kind of a general overview of the system. We're going to get familiar with the different features. We're going to take a look at some test results to see how effective it is in practice against a variety of different laser guns. I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts on the system, what I like as far as both the pros and the cons. And finally, we're going to go over the pre-order information and the different discounts and coupons that are available here before the laser jammer is available and starts shipping in mid-October. Now, you can also check out my written review if you like. I'll link to that down underneath the like button. But in this video, we're going to go ahead and go over all the details, plus we're going to go ahead and get a nice hands-on look at the system too. And so with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look here at the new Adaptiv TPX Automotive laser jammer. So to get things started, let's go ahead and take a closer look here at this new laser jamming system. So when you open up the box, you're going to go ahead and find the CPU itself, as well as the wired remote that you're going to use to control the system, plus the alert speaker to hear the different alerts. The system is capable of supporting up to 5 heads total, including 3 heads in the front and 2 heads in the rear. The standard system is going to come with just 3 heads like this, and so this is going to be designed just for front protection. You've got 2 regular heads plus the more powerful center mass head. For installation, you've got some mounting brackets, bubble level, screws, double stick tape, zip ties, etc., all the usual stuff. You've also got your power cable here to get the whole system powered on, and a USB extension cable here for all of your different firmware updates. Now, taking a closer look at the heads themselves, the overall design is going to be really similar to the competition. Not exactly the same, but again, very similar design. Here it is, for example, installed alongside my ALP during comparison testing. Now, the biggest difference that I noticed is actually the design of the center mass head. If you take a look at it, it's actually exactly the same externally as your standard heads like this. And so unlike the ALP or TMG equivalents, it also has receive capabilities here, which is pretty cool. Now, Adaptiv hasn't gone into detail as far as exactly what the differences are. I'm assuming it's just going to be more powerful transmitters, again, like the competition. And testing this out, it looks like this is indeed the case. You can see that when the heads fire, the regular head has just 1 transmitter that fires, but the center mass head, on the other hand, has 2 transmitters firing. And so it is indeed going to be more powerful. But design-wise, it's otherwise going to look exactly the same on the outside. The only real way I found of telling the difference is just to look at the bottom. You'll notice that the center mass head actually has a sticker here that says CM. The regular heads like this don't have the additional sticker. If you opt for rear protection, the 2 additional heads are both going to be regular heads. The center mass head is just an option for the front of the vehicle. Now, taking a closer look at the cable, it's just going to run out to the CPU with this USB plug right here. Now, one key difference that I've noticed is there is no quick release option here built into the cable. With most of the other laser jammers, if the head ever fails, let's say, it needs to be replaced, or maybe you want to upgrade it down the line, with most of them, you actually have a quick release capability, so you can actually disconnect the head while leaving the rest of the cable that's run throughout the car in place. With this one, if the cable ever needs to be replaced, you're going to have to unplug this from the CPU, remove the cable entirely, and then rerun the whole cable. So just something to note. Next, let's go ahead and take a closer look here at the CPU and how everything wires up. So if we go ahead and pop the cover off the CPU here, you're going to notice we've got a number of different ports here. We've got a port for power, the center mass head, the 2 front heads, the 2 optional rear heads, a USB Type-A port for firmware updates, and then the wired control pad. Almost everything is based off USB, and so it's really easy to plug in. Now, the design of the CPU, the automotive version, it's actually going to be very similar to what we have with the motorcycle version. If we pop off the covers here for both systems, you're going to notice they look almost exactly the same. Really, the main difference is that for the motorcycle version, we had a plug-in here for the audio to plug into your helmet, as well as an external LED so you could see it while you're riding your bike. Versus for the automotive version, we have 2 ports here instead for the 2 rear-facing jammers. Now, one kind of strange thing that I just noticed while getting everything wired in, you'll notice that the CPU itself does have these little notches for the cables to run out of, which is pretty nice, but there's kind of no notch right here, which you're going to want to use if you're going to be doing the USB extension cable to do your firmware update. So for that reason, for this one, you're just going to want to run it out to a different hole like the wired control switch. Then you just pop the cover back on the CPU, and you're going to have all the cables running out the backside here like this. Next, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the system itself, including what the alerts are like, as well as the different settings that are available. So let's go ahead and boot up the jammer here. And so when we're up and running like this, you can see we've got a status LED here at the top of the remote, and the alert speaker is built into the remote as well. And we've got 2 different buttons, and I'll go into that here in just a second. Now, you'll notice that when I started up the jammer, it gave me this quick beep. Here, I'll turn it off again, and we'll start it up as if we're starting up our car. So you can see, again, we got status alerts letting us know the system is up and running, and then now it's set up to jam. Now, the way that the jamming is going to work with this system, it's going to jam for 3 seconds, and then the entire system is going to shut off. Here's what the alerts look and sound like. There you go. So simple beep, the alert LED flashes, and then the entire system is now shut off. So the buttons, they don't do anything anymore. The system has powered itself off, and it will not automatically power itself back on. If you want the jammers to rearm, you're going to have to actually manually press and hold this power button here for 3 seconds and turn it back on. Once you do that, again, the system is reactivated, and it's going to be set up to jam for another 3 seconds next time you get shot. Now, you'll notice when I got shot, it was a very simple alarm. There was no directional information, there was no gun ID, there was no additional information. It was just an alarm that I'm getting hit with laser, and then the system shuts off. I'll go ahead and do that one more time. So again, alarm, system shuts off. Now, I do have front and rear heads plugged in. It didn't tell me the direction. There was no different color alert LED, just a red flash. That's it. So a very simple alert, and then it shuts itself off. And then again, you're going to have to manually turn the system back on here too. Now, as far as that automatic disarm capability, there's just a 3-second timer, and then it turns itself off, and that's it. You don't have the ability to press either of the buttons here and disable the jammers faster. So if you want to manually JTK, that's not available as an option. Additionally, if you want to change that timer to maybe take a little bit longer before it disarms, you don't have that ability here either. It's just 3 seconds, and then the system turns itself off, and that's it. Now, there is a special testing mode for unlimited jamming capabilities. If we press the power button here real quick once, you're going to hear those 2 beeps. So now the system is set up for unlimited jamming capability. So now when you get shot, it's going to keep jamming until the officer, well, stops shooting you or you pass by. And so in this situation, it's just going to go ahead and keep jamming like this until I stop hitting it with laser. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let off the laser gun trigger now. And you can see the beep continued for another second or two, and then it stopped alerting. So it's not exactly like a pro mode to let you know when the officer lets off the trigger. We'll go ahead and do that again one more time. Just go ahead and trigger. System is going to go ahead and start alerting, and then I'm going to let off the laser gun now. And then a second or two later, the system stops alerting. So again, there's no gun ID. It didn't tell me what gun was firing, didn't tell me what direction, and I can't press either one of the buttons here to disable the laser jammers when it's firing. So this is strictly going to be for testing purposes, not for actually using it day to day. Then if you want to set it back to the 3-second auto JTK, you're going to press that power button again, and it's going to beep once. So 2 beeps is unlimited jamming for testing. 1 beep is going to be back to 3-second automatic JTK. So very simple system. That's pretty much it. Now, as far as the other buttons, we do have a mute button here, which we can press to mute the alert when we get hit. Like that. So it's still jamming. It's still going to jam for the full 3 seconds, but in the cabin, we no longer get the alert LED or the alert alarm. It's still going to jam for 3 seconds, doesn't stop faster. But the system is now shut off, so here. And then once we get the system booted back up, we can also go over the button here used to adjust the volume of the audio alerts and the brightness of the alert LED. So to do that, when there's no alert present, we're just going to press and hold this. And then we can cycle through the 4 different options. Cool, so that's your volume controls. And then one other thing to mention quickly here is the parking sensor functionality. So you'll notice that when it's set up here in laser jamming mode, this alert LED is going to be red. If we press and hold this here for a second, the system is then going to switch over to parking sensor mode, and the alert is going to turn blue, with the alert LED on top. And then now, if there's anything detected in front of the sensors, parking sensor functionality is going to work like this. You're going to hear the beep, and you're going to see the alert LED flash. And then once there's no longer an object detected within 3 feet of the sensors, the system is going to stop beeping and flashing. Now, laser jammer functionality is disabled when you're in parking sensor mode, so to switch it back, you're just going to press and hold this here for a second. And then it's going to switch it back into laser jamming mode. And then to fully disable the system, just like turning it back on, you just press and hold the power button for 3 seconds, and that's going to turn the system off. Next, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the test results to see how effective the system is in practice. If it doesn't do the job, if it doesn't jam well, then who cares about anything else, you know? Now, I've had a chance to do some testing with it against a variety of different guns, though the system that I was testing with was actually with beta firmware. And we actually came across some issues with the pre-production firmware that Adaptiv has since improved upon and fixed. And so the current firmware is actually going to perform better than what I found here in my initial testing. Now that said, the Bravo and Venom 690 on RDF have also had a chance to do some testing, and the testing they did was done with the public retail firmware. And what they saw in their testing was actually pretty similar to what I saw in mine, but with some of the fixes in place that addresses some of the weird issues that I saw in my test. And so with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the test results they shared. Now, the first vehicle that they tested on was a Honda Odyssey minivan, and they had a set of triples installed on the front of the vehicle. And then on the rear of the minivan, you can see the two TPX laser jammers installed here for testing right underneath where he had his ALPs installed. Then Venom 690 did some testing with his Honda Civic, and again, you can see we've got the set of triples installed here on the front. And then on the back side of the vehicle, he's got the two heads installed on either side of the rear plate, and the typical location kind of pushed out toward the taillights. And starting off with the test results here for the Honda Civic, the system actually performed really well. It was almost jam to gun against pretty much every single gun, including the Dragon Eyes. They did see one close range punch through with one of the Dragon Eyes, and then a second one with the Stalker XLR, but effectively, it pretty much ran jam to gun against all of the different guns, which is very impressive. Then looking at the test results for the rear of the vehicle with just two heads instead of three, you can see that it starts to struggle here more, particularly against some of the tougher Dragon Eye guns, which is to be expected. They started seeing some punch throughs around the 300 to 500 foot range or so, and then sometimes got some additional punch throughs at like 500, 700, 900 feet away. Against the other guns, like your TrueSpeed SXB or your Stalker XLR, it was pretty solid. Occasionally one or two punch-throughs here or there at close range, but otherwise really solid performance. And so against smaller vehicles here like the Honda Civic, it seems like it's actually doing a really good job. Next, moving on to the bigger Honda Odyssey minivan. In this situation, you can see the system still performed really well, but they did start to see a few more punch-throughs here, around 200 to 400 feet or so against the different Dragon Eye guns. It did a great job jamming farther away, did start to get some closer range punch-throughs, and then was fully bulletproof against the other guns that they tested with. So again, a nice strong showing here. Next, moving on to the rear of the vehicle where we dropped down to just two heads instead of three. Against the Dragon Eyes, they started getting some more punch-throughs again, around 200 to 400 feet or so, and then sometimes some additional punch-throughs as they kept driving away from the gun. And then looking at the easy to mid difficulty guns, you can see a lot of them ran jam from gun, and then occasionally they were seeing some punch-throughs at the 300 to 500 feet range or so, but then jammed after they got farther away. And so looking at the overall test results, I think the system actually did pretty well here. We had pretty solid test results here, particularly against the front of the vehicle where you do have that third center mass head. It does make a difference here in practice. It looks like the system also does perform better when you install it on smaller vehicles compared to larger vehicles, which is also pretty typical just because you have more surface area to cover with the larger ones, and it does tend to be a little bit easier to protect smaller vehicles than bigger ones. And then as far as protecting the rear of the vehicle with just two heads, it looks like it does a pretty good job against your kind of standard to mid difficulty guns, but it is going to struggle more against the Dragon Eyes. Now, here in the US, most of the Dragon Eyes we're going to see are going to be shot in the front, which is really nice. If you drive in an area like Canada where they have a lot of rear Dragon Eye, I don't think that this would be the system to get. I would recommend stepping up to something like the ALP, but for most drivers here in the US, it seems like it's going to be doing a good job both front and rear, and then because most of the Dragon Eye is going to be in the front, you're going to be getting pretty solid protection against this too. Now, as far as the testing that I did on my Audi Q5, it was actually pretty similar to what they saw on the Honda Odyssey minivan. Overall, the system seemed to do better against some of the easier guns, struggled a little bit more on the Dragon Eyes. No surprise there. But overall, yeah, it does seem to offer pretty solid level of protection as needed, so long as you kind of know the strengths and weaknesses and the overall capabilities and limitations of the system. I think it can do a pretty good job. Now, besides just the performance aspects of the laser jammer, feature-wise, it's a pretty simple one like you saw in the hands-on section. I mean, it's pretty much just turn it on, you get 3 seconds of jamming, and then it shuts itself off. That's pretty much it. Compared to something like an ALP, for example, that's going to be a much more feature-rich laser jammer. I mean, yes, the laser jamming capability is going to be better. It gets more updates, but then you've also got a lot of other features too. Things like laser gun IDs to let you know what gun you're being shot with. It'll let you know if the shot is coming from the front or from the rear. You can customize the automatic shut-off timer. You've got the Pro Mode capability to let you know when the officer is shooting you or he lets off. You've got Bluetooth capabilities to let you change settings more easily or update the laser jammer right from your phone. Now, both the ALP and the TPX, the firmware updates are going to be also available over USB. With the Adaptiv system, you just head on over to their website, you download the latest firmware update file, copy it over to a USB thumb drive, and then plug it in to the laser jammer. It takes about 15 seconds or so to update the system, and then you've got the latest level of protection. Additionally, ALP has the option for a third rear head to give you that additional protection for the rear as well. Plus, you can do things with installing like 2 TX heads on the front for even more protection. So yes, the ALP is going to be a better system than the the TPX. No surprise there. But you're also going to be paying more for something like the ALP. I mean, you're looking at for front protection, for 3 heads up front, you're going to be paying an extra $500 minimum for the ALP compared to the TPX. Additionally, if you want to do full front and rear protection and add on things like external speakers and Bluetooth and all the different accessories and stuff, you're looking at more than $1,000 extra to go for the ALP over the TPX. And so with the TPX, I think, yes, it's going to be a much simpler laser jammer. Just install it, plug it in, 3 seconds protection, there you go. But you're also going to be spending a fair amount less when you're purchasing the system. And that really seems to be, I guess, the big appeal here of the system. Now, compared to the TMG that I mentioned, I've done a previous video kind of going over some of the details, but it looks like TMG is not currently available for sale and there's no customer support available. I hope to see that change and it comes back available for sale in the future, but it seems like right now that's a big question mark. The TMG does offer more features like additional heads, laser gun IDs, directional info, Bluetooth, that kind of stuff. And so the TMG definitely does have more features than the TPX. But for the time being, given that that's now unavailable, it's looking like the TPX might actually be taking the place here for being kind of your more affordable laser jammer option. And then there's other options available too, like the Escort systems. Those retail for $1,000 for a 2-head setup up front. With the TPX, you can actually get 3 heads for less money than the Escort system. And so let's actually go over how pricing works here with this new system, particularly available for pre-order. Now the system, it's not started shipping yet. It's actually expected to start shipping in mid-October. And if you want to purchase the system, you can go on over to Adaptiv's website and put down a deposit. And then once the system is ready to start shipping in October, you just pay the remainder and they ship the system out to you. Now, price-wise for the system here, the system is going to retail for $950 for a set of triples, so 3 heads up front. Additionally, if you want to add some rear heads for your rear protection, it's going to be an additional $210 for each of the rear heads. Again, up to 2 for the rear. Now for pre-order, they're actually selling the system for $100 off. And so instead of $950 for a set of triples for front protection, you can get it for $850. And so you'll see that when you go to the website, you're going to put $100 down to pre-order the system. And then when the system is ready to ship, you're going to pay the remaining $750 and they'll ship the system out to you. Additionally, if you also use the coupon code Vortex, that'll save you an additional 10% off the pre-order deposit and the system itself, plus any additional heads that you want too. And so to boil everything down, after all the pre-order discounts and the coupon codes, for front protection with the 3 heads, you're looking at $765. And then if you add the 2 rear heads to get both front and rear protection, you're looking at $1,125. So really nice pricing available for both the front only option as well as the front and rear package. And so as far as my final thoughts on the system, it seems to be a pretty effective laser jammer in terms of its jamming capabilities. Feature-wise, it's pretty simple, right? There's not a ton of bells and whistles. It's pretty much just install it in your car, and then it's going to give you 3 seconds of warning, typically enough time to slow down and take action as needed. I would love to see some additional capabilities like laser gun IDs, things like directional information to let you know where the officer's shooting. I would love to see the option for a 3rd rear head, but I think for most people in the United States, 2 is typically going to be sufficient. If you do need full rear protection, especially up in Canada, I do think that other systems would be the way to go, particularly the ALP. And then also if you want some additional bells and whistles like Bluetooth and things like that, yeah, of course, other systems are going to offer that. This is really designed to be kind of your simple and inexpensive laser jammer system. Inside the cabin, all you're really going to see is the wired remote here to turn the system on and off or to hear the alerts when you get shot. And then you're going to want to run the USB cable somewhere, maybe to your glove box, for example, to do your firmware updates. The heads themselves, very standard size, typical like most other laser jammers. I would love to see kind of quick releases on the cables in case in the future maybe a head gets damaged or it needs to be replaced so you don't have to maybe remove the entire wire that's run through your firewall or through your car. So for convenience, I would love to see quick releases, but that's not available here on this system. Again, this is a very simple system to where you just kind of install it in your car, power it up, and there you go. Pretty straightforward, right? So if you're looking for an affordable yet still effective system and you don't want to pay for a bunch of the bells and whistles that you would get for higher end systems, that seems to be kind of what this Adaptiv TPX automotive laser jammer is really going for. And down in the video description, I'm going to have full links to the discussion on the forums, links to where you can go pre-order the system, coupon codes, my written review of the system, all that kind of stuff. You'll find some additional information down in the video description, as always. And so, yeah, that's a look here at this new laser jammer. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you in the next video.